Cindy Bishop, Thai actress, model, and activist, started hashtag Don't Tell Me How to Dress in response to a 2018 advisory from Thai police during Thailand's annual Somkran Festival, telling women not to wear revealing clothing if they wanted to avoid being sexually harassed. Hashtag Don't Tell Me How to Dress began a movement seeking to empower women and hold men responsible for acts of sexual violence and harassment, rather than blaming women for what they happen to be wearing. Now, Cindy is gearing up to launch a new hashtag Don't Tell Her How to Dress campaign, which seeks to bring men into the conversation and help them use their voices to support the women they love and respect.
Hello, everyone. My name's Zach.
And I'm Miriam.
And welcome to Action! Today we are here with Khun Cindy Bishop.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm great.
Good. So we are super excited to get into the conversation today. So let's get started.
Hello, Khun Cindy. Thank you so much for being our guest today on Action. We're so excited to have you.
Yes,
We're
so
happy
excited.
to be here.
Thank you so much. So today we're really excited to have you here because Cindy is a model, an actress, and also an activist for gender equality here in Thailand. Mm-hmm. And one of the big things that we want to talk to today is gender equality, mm-hmm. right? Because this is such an important topic to raise awareness about, but not just awareness, to actually take action.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask you this question. Why is it so important for everyone to be involved with trying to achieve gender equality for everyone?
Well, for one thing, gender equality affects half of the population of the world. And, you know, it's something everyone seems to think, oh, it's just an issue for the people who are, namely the women who are wanting it. But it's not. It's an issue that affects every single person on this planet. Mm-hmm. And it affects every aspect of our lives, whether it be social aspects, education, economy, and so this is something that should be at the forefront of every agenda, whether it be in communities, all the way up to businesses and government level. Because when we start to protect and take care and support women, everything gets better. And there are so many research studies out there that can support that as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, and that's so true what you're saying about education too, mm-hmm. especially that. I mean, government, business, all of those things are important, but I do think that education is one of the maybe biggest ways that we can have an impact.
Exactly.
So how are some ways that you think that our next generation can be better educated about gender equality? Like, what are some of the things we can teach from an early age?
Well, it's that's the key, is we need to start talking about it from an early age. And this is something exactly. I'm advocating for in continuation of my campaign, Don't Tell Me How to Dress. And that is, how do we start to teach as early as 3, 4, or 5 years old, both our children, our boys and our girls, about respect, about what it means to be happy and healthy and have a good relationship and consent and all these basic things, you know, and not have them be affected by this idea of power imbalance, which is this is the thing with in this part of the world, we have to also understand and accept the fact that patriarchal mindset is ingrained because of the culture, so much of it, and also just generations. But there are certain aspects of culture that if it's not serving half the population, perhaps we should think about that.
Reevaluate.
You know, there's many outdated, damaging cultural practices that throughout the years we're like, oh, that's not that great. We can, you know, so there are ways that we can still preserve our beautiful culture, but really take steps to prevent this kind of behavior from happening, because so much research, again, goes back to this idea that a boy is more valuable than a girl. And how is it that is being taught, you know? And so how do we take the necessary steps to prevent that before it gets too late, before, you know, the boy turns into a teenager and decides that he's just going to go and do something or, you know, act out in a way that's violent because he was never taught the proper way to behave, or to that his actions have consequences, or we spend so much time teaching our girls to protect themselves. Well, that's not sustainable, really.
Exactly, and it's also putting the burden. All of the burden of this conversation about the girl or the woman,
exactly,
which is something that I think is so like damaging to our culture anywhere in the world, where it's like always the woman's responsibility to what was she wearing, what was she, and this is
how was she behaving, what were you doing to lead him on? Well, it's not always the case.
Absolutely.
And what is it do you think is about gender equality that mainly stems to gender equality just being about protecting the women and not the men as well? Because as you said, we need to start teaching our boys and not just our girls to protect themselves. So why do you think the stereotype is that gender equality is mostly just alluring to women and not women and men?
It goes back to this mindset. The mindset in Thai they say ความคิดชายเป็นใหญ่ means the man is more important than the woman. And so this comes through education, empowering parents to talk to their children about these concepts. And it's also creating a safer society on every level, right? So at school, in communities, at the workplace, how can we make sure that women have a safe space and access to all the opportunities that men have? And it comes from really everybody taking it upon themselves to make sure and make that a priority. And whether you are a teacher, whether you are a business owner, whether you are a student at a university, everybody has the power to do something about it, and we should. Because for far too long we've said, oh, this is an issue that, if it doesn't affect me directly, I don't want to talk about it. Sexual assault, oh my God, that's, it's
too sensitive.
It's too sensitive, and therefore this issue remains in the dark.
Absolutely.
We need to take it out of the dark into the light and realize that if it could very well happen to you, or if not you, it could very well happen to someone you're close to, a relative, your friend. And so when that does, because violence affects 1 in 3 women all across the world, and in Southeast Asia, it's 1 in 2. That means 50% of women or girls have been affected by either violence, sexual harassment, online bullying at some point in their life.
1 in 2.
For me,
1 in 2.
But I mean, actually, pretty much, I can almost say 100% of girls and women that I know has some sort of that, throughout your lifetime.
Yes.
Whether it be a look, an action, a remark, no doubt about it. And so, it's going to take a lot of people talking about it.
Right.
Enough of this, like, oh, it's never going to happen to me.
Right. And I mean, the way you say that it's 1 in 2, I mean, I bet the viewers back at home would agree with us that it's not just 1 in 2, it could literally be every other woman in the world has definitely felt like they were in danger at some point in their lives.
For sure.
And that's unacceptable.
Look, I mean, trust me, even just, I'm a grown woman. If I were to walk down certain streets in the city, I would not feel safe.
And in any city, by the way.
Why is that? Where it's something's wrong with the world. And so, and I am still hopeful enough that, and plus I have kids, I have to remain hopeful. I'm hopeful enough that we are able to turn that around, if not in a big way, at least in some small way. And so my suggestion is become active, whatever that means for you. It can just be being there for someone, listening and trusting and believing a woman when she says that this has happened to her. That's already extremely powerful. To starting up a club, a gender equality club at a university, to starting an online campaign. Your voice is so important. Absolutely. You don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to be someone powerful. Your voice matters, and the more we speak up, the more change we can create.
Absolutely. So I want to touch on the gender-based violence piece that we've sort of been talking about a bit. There is so much gender-based violence that occurs in the world, and I think one thing that we can do, of course, is talk about it. That's like the first thing. But are there some other ways through the research that you've done for your own campaign that you've been able to identify that you want to share with people about like ways that we can try to prevent gender-based violence?
Well, there are quite a few. It depends on where you are, what is your setting. So, for example, on campus, one of the ways that violence can be prevented is, seeing what policies that there are already in place, and if there aren't any policies,
#policy police.
we need to start something. Whether it go petitioning to the university itself and saying, hey, we need clear policies, what constitutes sexual harassment and violence. If it does happen, what are the mechanisms that a woman or a girl can go and report these in a way that's safe and anonymous. We need to hold people accountable for their actions, not just in universities, but in society. Working with law enforcement and making sure that they are doing their jobs. Sometimes we could enlist the power of the media. That's a very useful tool, especially in Thailand. I think a lot of change happens when, you make a big stink about it. Unfortunately, it's the following up and making sure that, that it's actually changing something. And just also being active bystanders. A lot of perpetrators get away with their actions because they know the people around are too scared to say anything.
Definitely.
So if you see like this, there's been a campaign called Team Phuak, which is a action plan with Action Aid, UN Women, like quite a few NGOs. And they're basically saying that if you see a woman getting harassed or assaulted on public transport, you have the right to go up and, of course, you make sure you're not in danger, but pick up a phone and start filming them, or go up and say, hey, do you need help, or pretend that you're her friend. That's a lot of times that's all that's needed to stop violence from happening. Yeah.
And I think exactly what you're saying about complicity. What I see a lot, especially speaking as a guy, what I have experienced a lot in my life is that there will be something happening to a woman and there will be a lot of guys around. And whenever there's a woman around, I always see that most of the time, the woman will try to do something about it, right? Will at least say something about it. But I think that there's this weird thing that happens when guys are in a group where you don't want to be the one that's like saying something about it because you're worried about how the rest of the group is going to take that. But you just need to be the person who says something about it. Like that's our responsibility too.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't just look around, where's the woman who's going to say something about this? Like, no, just look at yourself, take a deep breath, and say something.
Just want to touch on that. There's so much hype about being macho, being the guy, a guy's guy. If you want to be a real man, you do something about it. You stand up for someone who is it doesn't matter what gender they are. Don't be so worried about how cool you look with your friends. The cool guy is the one that's going to actually be like, hey, something's not right with the situation. Or if this locker room talk that happens a lot.
Definitely.
Don't. Come on. I mean, it's almost like let's compete with each other to be a real man, exactly. So I think that's also adds to this whole the whole scenario.
Absolutely. So now I want to switch gears a bit because there's something really exciting that you're doing. So you are the founder of #Don'tTellMeHowToDress, which is a great hashtag, similar, I would say, to like the Me Too movement, if you're familiar with in the US, which is trying to say, and it has said very well, that women should not be sort of blamed for what they were wearing if they experience gender-based violence. So, there's a tendency to say when a woman experiences something like that, well, what were you wearing? Are you sure that you weren't asking for it? Questions like this, right? So that was the original movement that you started, which has been so powerful. And, I am a really big fan of that and a lot of different students here. And so now you're launching a new hashtag that is going along with that, which is called #Don'tTellHerHowToDress. So I want to let you explain what that's all about.
Yeah, well, that's actually came about from being here at Stanford. Somebody asked me after I gave a presentation on my campaign, they're like, well, what can guys do? And this campaign, this hashtag, Don't Tell Her How to Dress, I think is a great way for guys to get involved, for men to get involved and say, look, there's this woman in my life, whether it be your mother, your sister, your partner, she's someone that means something somebody that means a lot to you, you know. She supports you, you celebrate her, and that's a great way to show that you respect the women in your life. And by saying don't tell her how to dress, you're recognizing that she's her own person. She's
Definitely.
independent. She has her rights to do and express herself. And so I'm really excited to kick that off. Probably be the beginning of next year.
Yeah,
Hopefully right
so
right before Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's how we're going to get all these men to show love and support for the women in their life.
That's amazing.
And I think that that's very important that you bring it towards the month where we celebrate love.
Yeah.
So that's one way to show that you're really empowering these women and telling them that, you know what, I don't care how you look. You're the most upstanding woman that I know, and I shouldn't judge you based on how you're dressed and tell you what to dress. So that's a really, really great initiative.
Yay, I'm so excited to see and hopefully, be a part of it and to help promote it and all that.
That'd be good.
Yay! Okay, well, that is the conversation that we have today with Khun Cindy. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for watching another episode of Ready?
Action!
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.